bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So today marks 2 years since I poured my very first bismuth crystal on August 29, 2022. I think I even shot a video as I did it. So it's been 2 years. Kind of interesting how I started with bismuth. I was doing some tutoring. I was working at a tutoring center that was not a very ideal job, and I was kind of trying to give myself a little diversion. I really loved all of my students, by the way. It's the management and that I had a difficult time with. All of the tutoring centers that I worked at, management always makes the work feel so much heavier than it has to be. If I had to describe in one sentence the toxicity, that's how I would describe it, right? Um, I'm not sure why they do it that way, as if they were worried that I wouldn't be motivated enough by my love for the subject. But whatever the situation is, I had some students that I really got along with. One of my students, who was learning AP chemistry, had brought to class this periodic table that had a lot of information on it, the rarity of all the elements, especially. And I discovered that bismuth was almost as rare as gold, and that it was thousands of times cheaper. And so, not long after that, I went to buy some, and so I discovered that I could make crystals out of it. I gave that a try. And here we are 2 years later. I've since expanded to other metals. This is tantalum, my new favorite metal. I hope to acquire 100 pounds or so of tantalum, at least. And so there's a reason that these last couple of weeks I went off the deep end with my art project. What had happened was this is a mixed bag. I hope my viewers will not make fun of me for this. I had noticed that my ex girlfriend is getting married, and I feel happy for her. But at the same time, I don't want to be thinking about it. And so, to divert my attention from that, I've been going on a bender over making art. And unfortunately, it's also causing a lot of stress. Not because of my ex girlfriend getting married, but the art itself has been causing a lot of stress. You may hear that my voice sounds kind of weird today. Today is Thursday, right? Yeah. Monday morning, I was in a traffic jam and I got myself very upset. I was already not sleeping very well, and so I was upset and I screamed. And I wasn't thinking about my ex girlfriend when I just wasn't. I had already pulled an all nighter making tantalum and bismuth art, among other things, and so I screamed in my car. Nobody heard me. Windows were up and everything. I was screaming, and then I realized I lost my voice. I didn't realize I lost my voice while I was in the car. It was after that I got to campus and I decided I needed to record a Peter Dislike show before class to calm my nerves down. Did I realize I had no voice to do that? And then I went to class, and fortunately, not too many people noticed my voice, but I felt embarrassed by that. I don't know why. I'm not even upset about my ex girlfriend. I don't know why I have to binge work on my art to not think about that. I could talk about it now with see let's talk about what my time with her. I This was 8 years ago when I broke up with her. Actually, she was still living with her parents at the time. One day, I was really late getting to her family's home, and so my ex girlfriend thought I was cheating on her. And when I told her the reason I was late was because I was busy writing a computer game. The Computer Olympiad conference was coming up. I was competing in an AI for the game of 2048 that year. That game was really popular that year, 2016. And I was really late getting to her family's home. She was upset. She thought I was cheating on her. When I explained that it was a computer game that I was cheating on her with, that upset her even more. And I stormed out of her home. I was so lost in thought. I was living in Seattle, Washington at the time. I was only supposed to drive 2 miles away to get back home, but I was so lost in thought. I ended up driving to Ellensburg, Washington, if you can believe it. And while I was there, I discovered this rest stop called the Wild Horses Monument that had really dark skies, and I got to see the Milky Way, Jupiter, Saturn. This was in March of 2016. If you want to look up what the skies used to look like back then, Jupiter and Saturn were coming close to conjunction. Now they're receding from each other, but at the time they were coming close to conjunction. And I thought, it was 4 years away, the conjunction. I remember thinking to myself that if I end up meeting somebody new between now and then, and I'm going to propose to my new girlfriend, I'll do it when Jupiter and Saturn comes into conjunction. This was in December of 2020, and I almost made that come to pass. I'll get to that in a second because I got another anniversary I want to talk about. So 2 years ago today, when I began my bismuth career, I would say that was among the top 10 happiest days in my life. I'm going to talk about a few more other happy days, some of which actually led up to that. So in 2010, I was in a very toxic relationship. I was working on my PhD, and I had a girl who was taking advantage of me financially and spiritually, and I broke up with her. The breakup was challenging not because I liked her or anything, but because I didn't know life existed after a breakup. It's my first experience doing that. It was a Sunday morning, and I was looking at a coin show that I wanted to go to, and I realized I didn't have a girl to take to that coin show. I was terrified to death. But when I got up, it was really sunny, and I was riding an 18-speed bicycle at the time. I had a car, but the car was kind of in disrepair because during the time I was with the girl, I was spending all my money on her, and the car kind of fell into disrepair. I rode the bicycle to the coin show. When I went to the coin show, I probably thought to myself, I'll meet some other girl there and see what happens. But I got to the show and I quickly realized that I was having the best time of my life without the girl. And that's when I realized, this was June 13th of 2010. That's when I realized that life is fun with or without the girl. And in the 15 years since that, I've gone on many such events without a girl, without even thinking about it. Sometimes I actually hate it when a girl joins me in events like that nowadays, right? And then almost a year later, June 11th of 2011, I was still working on my PhD at this time. I was at a conference in Boston, Massachusetts, and minding my own business, having the best time of my life without the girl, when a girl sits down next to me and starts a conversation with me. It was the first time that a girl had made the first move on me. And it gave me a boost of confidence. We're not together anymore, but it gave me a boost of confidence that lasts to this day. 6 months later, I was getting ready to graduate with my PhD. It was December of 2011. I had mixed bags about that graduation. I knew I could walk down that graduation without the girl, but I noticed all my classmates do it with the girl. And I decided that I needed to have one last hurrah of some kind of event that would get the girl interested in me. And I decided to write an AI for the game of Computer Othello because there was this girl that I was, this other PhD candidate that I was interested in, but I didn't know what to start the conversation with her about. So I started writing the game of Othello, an AI for the game of Othello. But then I quickly realized that I was so busy writing the game, I wasn't even thinking about what to say to her. And so in the end, I went to the graduation alone. I had an okay time. But at the time, you got to remember, this was 2011. At the time, there wasn't a whole lot of acceptance for people who didn't follow the traditional path of life, right? Get married to somebody of the opposite sex, right? And so at the time, it was that you still had to do it that way, right? And then I competed in my first Computer Olympia in Yokohama, Japan, on August 16, 2013. And so I won 2 silver medals and 4 bronze medals. And I went to Fujuki theme park in Tokyo. And so the next couple of years were marked by my competing in the Computer Olympiad until I got into the drama with that girl in 2016. I had it so good in 2016. I wish I had realized how good I had it. Back in 2016, I used to not be a very careful driver. I got into 2 car accidents that year. And if I could go back to, if I could talk to my 2016 self, I would probably tell myself to stop binge eating so much. There's much more to life than eating, right? Of course, good luck getting my 26 self to believe that, right? But I used to think that life ended when food ended, right? I had a time in my life, I was going through a career pivot where money was tight, but I always found the money to binge eat. I don't know why. I just didn't know that life existed outside of eating. I would be living out of my car and I would be stuffing my face. If I could go back to my 2016 self, I would tell myself there's so much more to life than eating, right? Move somewhere and stop eating so much, right? I really would tell myself that. I tell myself to drive more carefully. I tell myself that to begin my art career now, right? Although I think the metal prices were a little bit higher in 2016, so maybe that might not be the best advice. But I'd have something to do with my hands. I wouldn't be stuffing my face, right? It's still a lot better than stuffing my face. I was going through a career pivot. I was beginning my teaching career at Washington Technology University. Washington Tech didn't turn out to be the best school to do it at, but the pivot went through, and now I have a relatively dream job, so I can't really curse that anymore. And so, and then a few years later, obviously, the COVID happened. My first day of the lockdown, got to remember, it was a 2 week lockdown at the beginning. I told myself that I would, uh, at the time, writing the AI for backgammon was a huge challenge for me. I didn't think I could do it. And I decided to throw something together. After all, we got nothing better to do anyway. Got 2 weeks. Long story short, 2 weeks became four, four became the rest of the year, and I wrote the number one AI for the game of backgammon. So turned out okay. Oh, I forgot one other chapter in my life. In 2019, the year before COVID, I had met another girl, and things moved a little bit faster than I had hoped. Her grandparents wanted us to be together. I wasn't ready yet. I still wanted to write the number one AI for quite a number of games, including backgammon, which I viewed as a very big challenge. If in 2019, there was no way I would ever think about that someday I would write the number one AI for the game of backgammon. I never would have thought of that, not in my wildest dreams. But I wanted to. I thought it would take at least 10 years for that to come to pass. There's so many things I'd have to learn. And I was dreading the day that I would not be able to go out and enjoy life as a single guy. And I gave that concept a little bit of a nickname. I called it my single life grand finale. And I went to Taiwan for what I thought would be the last time in my single life. I went to the Computer Olympiad for what I thought would be the last time in my single life, among other things. I was planning to take her to the girl to Ellensburg to propose to her on December 21st, 2020, when Jupiter and Saturn would come into conjunction. Well, fortunately slash unfortunately, 9 months before all of that, we had to stay 6 feet apart, and both of us realized that there were so many things we wanted to do while we were 6 feet away from each other, and so it turned out okay. Uh, I think, judging by what I see, I think she has happily married herself, so that turned out okay. Now, during the time of the lockdowns, I went to the Chaz protest. And on June 13th of 2020, exactly 10 years to the day after I first discovered life goes on without the girl, I went to the Chaz protest again alone. And I had the best time of my life again. I realized that if I could tolerate these loud environments, I am autistic. There's no way in the past I would think about that. Part of the reason the Chaz protest went down so easily for me was I was in the middle of an intermittent fasting session. And fasting always gives me a happy-go-lucky feeling. Nothing in the world can bother me. And so those are some of the happiest days in my life. I would argue that the bismuth career, probably I want to say the third happiest day of my life. After that very first time I went out by myself without the girl, and the trip to Ellensburg after I had broke up with my girlfriend. And you know what? I had it so well back then. I mean, not that I ruined anything, but I had it so well back then, both during the first time I went out without the girl, the trip to Ellensburg, the first computer Olympiad, the first computer game that I wrote, the Chaz protest. I had it so well back then. I didn't know what I had, and I just wish I could talk to my former self in those days, right? If I could talk to my 2020 self when I was writing the AI for the game of backgammon, I'd probably tell him that the best days are yet to come, right? Your careers in the art project is coming up, right? And so to be optimistic about that, even though we're in lockdown, if I could talk to myself during the career pivot when I started my teaching career, I'd probably tell myself that to think about the career, don't think about the job at hand, right? Because I had a very toxic working environment at Washington Tech. I had a good career, but toxic job, right? And I'd probably go remind myself that. Anyway, so there are probably things that my future self would want to talk to me about today. I'm gonna open my ears and see if I can hear him talk. Right. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.